now.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May 29th, 2026 special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Agribusiness Development Corporation. I am your chair, Jason Watts. Prior to calling the meeting to order, Alston Puyos will explain how the public can participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed by video conference, telephone, or in person.
For all of you joining us online, your microphones will automatically be muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about that agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you have finished speaking. For those of you joining by phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9. A voiced prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone, as well as in-person access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item.
All right, thank you, Alston. Members, this meeting is called to order at 9:04 a.m. I will take a roll call of all the board members who are present. When your name is called, please verbally acknowledge your presence and state who, if anyone, is over the age of 18, is present in the room with you. This will also serve as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or abstentions. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as this initial roll call. Board member Jesse Cook, excused. Board member Dave Hinazumi.
Present and alone.
Board member Glenn Hong.
President alone.
Thank you. Board member Dean Matsukawa.
Present and alone.
Board member Kira Kahane.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Board member Dean Okimoto.
Present and alone.
Board member Jason Okuhama. Excused. Board member Karen Seddon.
Present and alone.
Board member Nathan Trump.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Board member Jason Watts is present and alone. Board member Wicker.
Present alone.
Thank you. Members are reminded to have their cameras turned on and remain on screen during the meeting, especially during the vote, so the record will clearly reflect who was present at the time the vote was taken. Moving on to Section B, meeting minutes, there are none. Section C, chair's report, there is none. Moving on to agenda item, committee and permanent interaction group reports, there are none. Moving on to agenda item E1, it's a discussion and decision regarding the administration's committee recommendation to align the corporation's governance with state law and the gubernatorial appointment cycle. The board will consider the admin committee's recommendation to amend the ADC's bylaws. This amendment moves the annual election of officers from June to July of each fiscal year, ensuring that members seated as of July 1st, specifically newly appointed members, are empowered to select the leadership for the term in which they will serve. Secondly, formalizes the addition of a secretary and treasurer position to address fiscal and administrative gaps that have persisted as a problem since the 2021 state performance audit. By modernizing the oversight framework and establishing these roles, it's hopeful the corporation can strengthen its management structure and creates dedicated opportunities for broader board member participation in essential governance and record-keeping functions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, thank you, board member Okimoto. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, who's that?
Dave Hinazumi.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you, Dave. Seconded by Dave Hinazumi. Is there a presentation? Admin Committee Chair Hinazumi.
Yes, Chair. Can just summarize the action that was taken in front of the administration committee, and the agenda item as listed does a very good job of explaining the rationale for these. The focus is on adding the positions of secretary and treasurer. As stated in the performance audit, a couple of things. One of the key findings is, making sure we have sufficient oversight by the board. And what we can see, additionally within the audit is, file record keeping, and of course our financials, which are very important, budget planning. This is a lot of work. Staff has been doing, more than admirable job. Mark in particular, with the budgeting, having to make do with, what I would call a lack of resources, but he's been doing a great job, and we can definitely use the, added board member positions to provide, that necessary oversight that was listed in the audit. And then moving on to the timing, as far as timing of basically our, organizational meeting amongst the board, it just makes sense that we do it at the beginning of the fiscal year when we've got all of our members, duly appointed onto the board, and do the organizational meeting to elect these officers, and that would serve for the following fiscal year. So with that said, our administration committee is recommending that these amendments be adopted by the full board. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hinazumi. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to give testimony?
No hands raised, Chair.
Oh, thanks, Alston. Was there any board discussion? Oh, Board Member Kahane.
Hi. Excuse me, chairs. I have just the tiniest little comment, which is under Article 3, Section 2, that last sentence there. There's a proviso that says that provided that neither of them shall be an ex officio member. I think now that we're adding the other two officers, and we have 4 total, it should maybe say something like no regular officer of the corporation shall be an ex officio member. That's it. Just to make it read clean.
Okay. If there's no objections, I don't have any objections to making that change. Any further board discussion? All right, if not, are there any objections or abstentions? The measure is adopted. Moving on to agenda item E2 is a request to delegate authority to the executive director to complete negotiations in the best interest of the state and execute that certain purchase and sale agreements between the Agribusiness Development Corporation and Yi Sun Chiu Trust and 656 LLC for approximately 1.5 gross acres, more or less, of land situated in Wahiawa, District of Wahiawa, City and County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, tax map keys number 4, 7-4005 032 018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion.
Oh,
Second.
Board Member Okimoto, and second by, is that Member Wicker?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any presentation? Mark, is there a staff presentation for this?
You know,
Yes, I think it was prepared. Sorry. Let me open it up here. Okay. Share the screen. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, apologies for the delay. The request is to delegate authority to the executive director to complete the negotiations in the best interest of the state. For that certain purchase and sale between Agribusiness Development Corporation and Yeaston Chew Trust. This is a property of 1.5 gross acres, and excuse me. This is in the central Wahiawa area. The background is for this is Act 250, Session Laws 2025. The appropriated funding for the Agribusiness Development Corporation for the purchase of certain real property in Wahiawa, City and County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, for possible future use as commercial egg cracking facility. At its meeting on October 16, 2026, the ADC Board of Directors authorized the Executive Director to do all things necessary to facilitate the acquisition of the fee simple interest of the property. Since then, staff continues to work on with counsel and sellers representatives, to negotiate and draft a purchase and sales agreement. The request is that the board delegate the authority to the executive director to complete the negotiations in the best interest of the state and to execute as may be appropriate the purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of the property. And so I think at that time we will come back to the board, to share ADC's due diligence, formal due diligence on the property, including title review, environmental site assessment, and survey work, and miscellaneous other due diligence requests will commence upon the PSA. Once the PSA is executed by all parties, and that's typical, so that generally triggers a lot of document sharing between the owner and the state. An environmental consultant has already been selected and is on standby to begin once the PSA is executed. The procurement is ongoing for survey services to confirm property points and boundary, as well as conduct an encroachment review for the property. So the recommendation from staff is to approve the request, subject to the following conditions. Staff will present due diligence findings to the board prior to seeking final approval to complete and close the acquisition as may be appropriate. And open for any questions or on this request.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to give testimony?
No hands raised, Chair.
Thank you, Austin. Is there any board discussion?
Yes, Chair. I've got I've I've got
You-
one thing. As far as approving the request, so it does state the condition, staff will present, findings to the board. So in this process, are we going to know the terms of the purchase prior to executing the PSA? Or is this meant to be a post execution of PSA? Because basically, once we enter the PSA, that means we're agreeing to the terms that we're going to want to close on, provided there's no issues that come across in diligence.
That's correct. If and I don't know if I think that's where I don't believe we have the draft attached, so you're correct.
Okay. So
Yes.
my request, of course, not trying to delay anything, but request that I think is important is that we see a term sheet, letter of intent, whatever it is, so this board can see what we're entering into, in the first place.
So perhaps amending the request to for the prior to executing that we return to the board.
Yes, that would be my request.
Okay. So amending the I guess the motion before the board to I'm not going to properly say it, but basically to authorize the executive director to complete negotiations in best interest of the state, and prior to executing, return to the board for final approval of the terms within the purchase and sales agreement.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if I can make that motion, but I'm thinking that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I guess I can, yeah, we can, I think I saw Jen on here.
Chair, I guess if just the motion gets changed by if the board is agreeable.
Okay. Members, if there's no objections, we'll be changing the motion to add board member Hinazuma's request that the executive director return to the board when the PSA is completed.
You have Chair Hong, his
Yeah.
hands up.
Oh, board member Hong?
Yeah, my understanding of this is that we're targeting this one particular property for an egg cracking facility. I had raised some questions previously about what alternatives were looked at in other sites and what was the analysis for this being the targeted site for that facility, which at this point seems to be sort of property to be held in reserve in case we were going to go forward with it. And so I really would like to understand what the analysis was done in looking at alternative sites, alternative options for providing this type of a facility and the various locations. Pros and cons, logistics, things like that. I don't believe that I have a complete answer given on any of those questions. So I raise those issues.
Thank you, board member Hong. Mark, can you answer some of that? He did bring it up previously, and I think at the last board meeting and in the staff report, I think it was October 2025, not 2026. But can you answer those questions, Mark?
Yes. I may not be able to answer to his satisfaction. I do not believe there was a lot of alternative sites available. I believe this is a commercial property, and and that those types of properties close to the agricultural production area that that we're moving forward on in the Whitmore area, as well as the actual large egg producing farm is also nearby. But no, we did not look at a lot of other commercial properties for that. I think this seemed to be the closest commercial property available to the producers. I'm not sure if, and I don't have I don't think I can answer the question of whether an egg cracking facility, I think, is more of, could be placed on agricultural zone land. But I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I don't have that answer.
So, Chair.
Go ahead, Board Member Hong.
Yeah. So my concern is that we're looking at a facility that is easily available. I don't know what we're going to pay for it, but I don't know that we have answered the question of the long-term viability of the site from a logistics and a cost standpoint to make sure that this type of a facility will in fact be economical to operate, when there may be other options that could be more efficient to produce a better result for what we want to try and achieve, and that is to have a viable, cost-effective facility that can deliver to our local consumers.
Well, Board Member Hong, I think Board Member Wicker has his hand up. He might be able to answer some of that. Board Member Wicker.
Yeah, so Mark did cover the gist of it. We did look at existing ADC lands, Whitmore, as well as those near the largest egg provider in the state right now, Waialua Fresh. Those lands are currently Whitmore is already maxed out. The other potential would be another facility along Whitmore Ave, which ADC is currently exploring and acquiring. Appropriation funding was given last biennium to do the acquisition. The other site along Kaukonohoa, that is under proof of concept now with UHCDC. It is limited acreage there as well as no infrastructure, so that would take out time. Two other inputs for this would be, yes, there are an entity like Waialua Fresh. They currently ship out, I think, 1 container of egg a month, which we would get back. I'm sorry, they would have enough to ship out and return 1 container of liquid egg a month. Currently, costs prevented them doing that. During COVID, it penciled out. So now we have no liquid egg coming in from our local egg layers. The regional kitchen next town over, that provides DOE the mills. DOE can only purchase liquid egg. So an immediate vendor would be DOE. And as we look at resilience and ecosystem and achieving reducing imports, liquid egg is a low-hanging fruit. So if the state is interested in really achieving it, some of that stuff, and I hear Board Member Hong, how does it pencil out economically? Some of these facilities, they may be flat, or it is a mandate of the state for us to achieve that. The state's putting in the funds to develop and operate it. We also have spoken with other egg layers, and there's an inventory going on now with our commodity coordinator, who else could provide input into this facility. This one on Kilani Ave is an existing, it has the zoning and it has existing infrastructure for us to work off of. So the university is still on pause, I believe, until this starts moving forward to do the proof of concept, to give us a site plan. So that'll give us all the information, further information of what it will look like in costs moving forward.
Thank you very much, Dane. I really appreciate that. I think it would be useful and helpful to have some of that background provided, so that at least from an ADC standpoint, anyone looking at it can say, oh, they've considered other options, and there are some barriers to other sites, facilities, permitting, whatever those things may be. So I think that would be valuable in people looking at it to say that a relatively full assessment of why this particular site would be the best site. Thank you.
We'll work with ADC to provide a report or update. Let's target that for the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Oh,
We
go
can
ahead.
produce that. I'm sorry. We can produce that and, you know, as part of the next update prior to executing any kind of agreement.
Mark, even before that, if you guys wouldn't mind, sharing, if you can
Sure.
share the information with the board, even throughout as the process is moving forward. I think someone like Board Member Hong could help provide some, that's a good person to bounce ideas off of, right? So I don't know if you guys want to include people even before we get to the board meeting. That could be helpful too. So
Okay, that's excellent. We'll do that.
is there any further board discussion?
Chair Watts, sorry, I just had
Yes,
one quick follow-up.
Board Member Hinazumi.
In terms of the PSA, do we have it drafted? Is it? I'm just checking on the status. How
Yeah,
close
I think there is one, Mark. You guys have a confidential one, right?
Yes,
I
but
believe you shared with the board, right? Not publicly, but I think it's still a review or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's okay to share that with the board. So at some point after the board meeting, if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to the board.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. And then I just real quick, I wanted to address, Board Member Hong, we've had our first budget meeting as a board committee, and to your points that you raised, that the attempt is to bring the board more in line with providing more direction into what kind of requests the ADC processes and works on. So and providing that data to the legislature. So we are trying to be more active on the front end versus on the back. So your points are taken very, very seriously and clearly. Is there any further board discussion? If not, are there any objections, recusals, or abstentions? The measure is adopted. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to informational items. Agenda F1 is a staff report on the due diligence findings related to the acquisition of the Wahiawa irrigation system from Dole Food Company and the Wahiawa Water Company, situated in central Oahu, City and County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, including tax map keys numbers 17-3-005-005 and 17-3-013-003 and 17-3-012 and 002 and various easements. Is there a staff presentation? Mark?
Yes. I will share the screen.
I guess before you start, Mark, I just want to update the board. So members, just keep in mind this Wahiawa system is part of Act 218, which requires that we complete these items or the PSA and by June 30 of this year. So it is my intent. The staff, they're working on the due diligence. They're almost complete, but it's my intent to have 2 additional meetings in June to ensure that we don't miss any deadlines, and we give the staff every opportunity to complete this properly. So, Mark, please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So without going, parcel by parcel, really what staff has been tasked to do is to review the path of the ditch system, right? With respect to the parcels being acquired in fee, that due diligence, environmental work has been completed, and those are pretty solid. I think what we were looking at is the various paths of the easements. Now, in approaching this, the way we we're looking at it as if we're going to have the reservoir and its potential 3 billion gallons of irrigation water for use for irrigation, and then it's also with DLNR with respect to recreational resource. We were contemplating, well, if you're gonna have this water resource, you need to be able to deliver it. So it's either acquire as many of the easements that Dole can transfer to the state, realizing that because of this has gone along for many, many years, that some of the easements may need to be worked on ongoing, right? Dole may not have every easement available, but the first sort of pass over this was, well, what would we do if we didn't get the easements, right? If we had to run a pipe or something like that over state-owned property solely, which would be primarily probably roads, right? And so you could provide a similar path of water going down Kaukauna. Well, maybe I'll share can't quite see what else. Okay, let me share this screen. Okay, so the ditch system is the active ditch system is primarily in this area here. And this is because this is Dole land and some of it's state land. These easements are pretty good in this active area. There may be a few access questions that I had here. I know there are other options to get to these areas, but we're requesting that they be searched. So when you look at the list that was attached, you'll see many of the easements not necessarily provided yet. Dole is working on those. Some of the area westward, going northeast in the top of this screen, this top right side, that goes toward Kamehameha Schools, and they've got about I forget the acreage. I think they've got about 10,000 acres in that area, but not all of it's farmable and not all of it's ag. I think there's probably about a couple thousand acres on this side, and then going westward, it goes out this way. This area is not currently very active, but I know the easements in this area. Some of there's pretty good documentation on a lot of this side. But this is somewhat inactive at this time. So looking at this, we were thinking, well, if you had to deliver water to this area from this resource and running it, let's say, down a road or putting in a pipe, right? Just giving you sort of a general idea of what it might cost to, let's say we don't take these easements and we create our own system. We've done something like that. I'll stop sharing again. Go put up another screen. We've done something else with Waihole, and this was about 10 years ago. And we know that, this is like premium. This is really nice. So even if you didn't do something quite like this, right? And what they did was they dropped a pipe in the existing ditch. So no digging or anything, right? No excavating. You just dropped the pipe in the ditch, poured gravel over it, and they put a concrete cap on it. And the reason for that is you don't want rainwater falling around the pipe, and then you'd be creating a mosquito hazard, right? So it's concreted like this. Now you don't necessarily have to do this, but this cost was very high, right? As you can see, and it was done this way for a reason in certain areas near development. for safety. And this was about $3,000 a linear foot to do this. Okay. Now, doing a more municipal type system, putting it in, I looked at some of the costs, and obviously this is just sort of very rough magnitude of order and cost. Cost for installing a municipal pipe, let's say in a road, might be about $1,000 to as much as $5,000 a linear foot, depending on the conditions. We would have to install probably about 14, 15 miles of pipe. You know, and even at $1,000 a linear foot, would be $75 million. You know, if it were $2,000 a linear foot, obviously $150 million. It's, you know, it's quite, to do it on our own would be, it kind of almost doesn't pencil. So taking over the easements, you know, as, you know, even if they perhaps are not perfect, is probably a more economical way to do this. And then of course the other option is not doing it. And we know that there was a study done on this system, and that system provides about, and this was an older study, was about an $80 million impact to the state, economic impact to the state. So even if you say you feel that estimate might be high, even if you lower it to like $50 million a year, the cost of not doing anything, there's also an economic impact, right? So, you know, so the other option is to go through this. And so we went through this list. You know, both the Attorney General's office, many people have been working on this, going sort of parcel by parcel, going down. And there are some areas that, you know, an easement is not needed because, you know, Board of Water Supply property, you know, you don't have to provide irrigation water to that. There are some active areas. There are areas that are on Dole's land. And although there is no easement there because it's Dole's property, they have agreed to create and grant an easement to ADC, the state of Hawaii. And so without going through every single one of these, right, the question has come up like, well, what percentage of the active system has pretty good easements now? And that would be, I don't actually have a percentage, but it's most of it is. And, you know, then going back to that map, I'll share that map again. Apologize for the jumping back and forth. I'm not able to just, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't know how. Okay. So this area here where this is most of the active farming is occurring, a lot of the easements here are good, or they're owned by Dole, and then they have agreed to transfer the easements. So right now, as far as the update, you know, providing an update, I feel quite confident that, you know, even if there will be some gaps, and I'm assuming there will be, especially in some of these other areas where the ditch does not run, but I know I've worked on this. There's a siphon here, which goes from this property down and back up the slope. To get to the bottom of the slope, the easiest way to get to it is there's a road that comes through here and pops up, and it's called Government Road. It pops up near Thompson Corner, this is Kaukonoa Road, and then it takes a right, and then it becomes Farrington Highway going westward. And there's a goat farm here. But anyway, so I know that there will be some of those that we still need to work on. And I feel like those could be done, you know, post-closing. I think the primary area, if we take this over, most of the actual operating and actively used water systems, you know, we will be able to operate. We will continue to work, as we know this is to get the entire system up and running is a very long-term matter. But you know, like I said, right now, I think what we have is I think a pretty strong area in this active area where we'll be able to continue to deliver water, during at the time of a transfer. And if there's any questions, I can respond.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to give testimony?
No hands raised, Chair.
Thank you, Austin. Is there any board discussion? Just for me, Mark, I just, as I said earlier, we're gonna have 2 additional board meetings just to make sure we stay on track to close. Will you be able to tell the board by, if we had a meeting in the next couple of weeks, the second week of June, would you be able to tell us which TMKs or which easements you're not able to list?
I would, at the time, yes, I could give you that. Now, a lot of these searches, maybe, on some of these older properties, these property searches, these title searches, take a number of weeks to do, and sometimes even longer. And so I believe that prior to closing, so prior to the final meeting, to make a decision, I do not believe I'll be able to tell you that every single easement I've got a document in hand. But like I said, the critical areas right now, there's quite a few, so we could probably be able to say maybe a high probability or, something to that effect, but I don't think I'll have an actual document for each one of them prior, let's say in the next couple of days.
No, understood. I think it's more I think it's more for the board. If in a couple of weeks you'll know for sure which ones you cannot get, right? So if we can identify those for the next board meeting, because then I think the board will need to speak with the Attorney General's office to determine any kind of legal issues with that, right? So I just want to be able to have the board make a decision, on the post-closing, before the end of June. So if by the next meeting you can tell us, identify for sure which ones you would not be able to get before the closing, be helpful.
Okay.
And then, Chair, if I can, just following up on what Mark just mentioned, Mark, if you are able to basically compile, the critical ones that you mentioned, so it's almost like a critical path of what is needed to operate the system, that might help us as well. While obviously we would want the proper documentation on every single easement. Maybe if we know the critical path is being met, perhaps that might be enough comfort to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and that certainly is one of the next steps, along with some of that potential improvements that are needed. I think I'm working on that. Did not quite have it ready for today. So what was shared with the board in the submittal package was up to that point. But even since then, we've progressed further on this. But but that is the goal. We will have, like, these are the ones that sort of to say, well, these are the pukas in the system, and then be able to identify that and what the impact of that might be. But we'll definitely have that by the next meeting.
Perfect. Any further board discussion? I just had one last thing, Mark. Sorry. The drain, that pipe you showed. I guess I'm assuming that anything like that we would need to get funding for, right? We don't have any kind of budget for that.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
There's I think what we would do, and that's part of in acquiring the system, you'd identify certain risk areas and then, you know, based on that, you could certainly look at putting pipe in. You know, it's a good practice if you think there's either a safety hazard, potential collapse, right, or something to that nature. You would identify those areas, request funding, and even if it was piece by piece or section by section, you know, we would do that. And this is the process that would take, you know, years to complete. But at the same time, we would still be able to deliver water. So make sure we support the farm activities. And so we would be able to support irrigation water delivery to you know, to the farming community in this area while making those improvements.
Cool. Thank you very much. Is there any further board discussion? All right, members, having no further business before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Oh, thank you, Board Member Kahane. Is there a second?
Second.
That was
Dean.
Dean. Oh, thank you, Board Member Okimoto. Are there any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is unanimously approved. The meeting is adjourned at 9:49 a.m. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Friday.
Happy Friday.